Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk about the AI Dunning-Kruger Effect. Before I get to that, don't forget King Leopard is out July 24th. If you're watching this in the distant future, it's a great book. You should read it. I call it George R.R. Martin meets Poul Anderson. It's a nice, thick book full of many words that I think you will enjoy. Linked down below. Classic fantasy for you. So, the AI Dunning-Kruger Effect. I've noticed this with people who are big AI bros, there's a strong Dunning-Kruger effect with AI art. So this is different from like ChatGPT giving you information on some historical topic or something. That's more like advanced summary search or like maybe a new Wikipedia version, right? I'm talking about using AI to generate things for you, to generate specifically text, like for a novel or artistic images. And the Dunning-Kruger effect there is that the people who are most hyped to use these things are the people least able to evaluate the outputs that the machines are giving you. And so there's a paradox there, which is that these are tools which are useful in the hands of a master, but a master wouldn't want to use them because that's not making art, right? A master painter wouldn't want to use AI to paint a painting, and because he's a painter and the fun part is painting the painting, right? It's be like hiring robots to go out and perform your music for you. That's the fun part. Like doing the gig is the fun part. That's the profitable part too. But that's the fun part. Like, why would you have the robot do the gig? And so why would you have the robot paint the painting? That's the fun. The fun is making the art. The fun is writing the book. I like writing. I gather that there are many authors out there who like to have written and don't enjoy writing, in which case I would say there are other things that you can do with your time besides writing. If you don't enjoy doing it, it's okay. There are other things that you can do that are more fun and probably more profitable than writing as well. But I'll give you an example. There was a YouTuber named Shad Brooks, and he's a big proponent of AI art. And every time he would put out his little AI art, what you'd notice about it is that it didn't look good, right? It didn't look like top tier art at all, right? It didn't look like a good artist had made it. And there was a million subtle little things that would give that away. But what I realized is that Shad, not being an artist himself, lacked the background, lacked the ability to functionally evaluate the outputs. He couldn't figure out, and he didn't know that he didn't know. That's the other thing, right? Is that yes, he doesn't have the skills or the knowledge to evaluate the outputs and know why they are subpar, but he also doesn't know that he doesn't know. The AI art which looks bad looks the same to him as the real art which looks good. It's a problem, and I've noticed it really with almost anybody that's a big proponent of AI art, is they're not able to properly evaluate the outputs. There are exceptions, but these are people that use AI art in different ways. From, say, I'm an AI artist because I told a robot what to do with my words. I can give you my secret prompts. It's like using words to describe things. It's what I do. Like, I don't need help with prompts. I get that maybe people who are less skilled might want some help with prompts, but it's not that much, right? You can just type a generic prompt in and get the same quality of AI art as these AI art bros, thinking that they have all of these magic little words that they can throw at their robot and it'll magically make the great art. The truth is they don't know enough about art to know what output is good and what's bad, or why it doesn't look real, or why it looks like AI, and how an artist can actually tell that. So I think of someone like Noah Bradley. When AI art was like first hitting, when like Midjourney was first hitting, he was like, here's how you can use it as a sketch layer. So basically you use it for the composition of the piece and to like give you inspiration, and then you paint over it and like make a new painting out of it. So the whole idea is to skip one part of the process, which is like the sketching where you're making objects and slowly adding details and moving things around and erasing them in the digital space, and instead jumping straight into the part where you're making a more complete painting. So it allows you to just get a concept that you can then refine a lot more quickly. And if you're a working concept artist, then being able to do that quickly may be a big benefit. Another thing that people don't realize about a lot of artists at work is they use the photo bash. So you can use an AI to skip the photo bashing step. If you don't know what I mean by that, it's like, let's say you want to compose a picture, right? And you want like two figures here and you want a mountain. So what they do is they get a picture of a mountain and they get a picture of two people and they kind of put them in the rough place. Then they make a sketch on top of that, and then they refine the image on top of that. So they're like tracing, right, for their sketch thing. At least using photos to create the initial composition of what will become the final painting. It happens a lot. Comic artists do it a lot. Greg Land is a very well-known comic artist for tracing, and yet he always has a job because he's able to complete his projects on time and under budget, mainly because he traces. So he skips the whole having to carefully sketch out with artistry what he's going to do. The thing is that if I look at Greg Land's traced art and I compare it to Jesse White, who did this cover, like, to me, there's no comparison. Like, Jesse's art is just on a different level from Greg's because he doesn't do that. Right. And any sort of flaw you might try to find in this about, I don't know, perspective or something like that, it just doesn't hold up because there's an intent to every position of the person, to the angle of their face, to the subtleties of their expression. And then that intent follows up with the brushstrokes that Jesse uses in his art. So there's intent with every brushstroke as well as with the sketch. There's intent with the overall composition of which figures here and which figures here, how she's holding this, what her hair's doing, right? Like, there's so much intent that goes into every little detail of art like this that someone who's not an artist is not going to be able to look at an AI output and understand why it's lacking because they don't know what they don't know. That's the problem. And again, the paradox is a great artist would enjoy putting their intent into every brushstroke. I get working on a deadline, and there's some that do that, but if you're talking about good art, not corporate art, not commercial art that needs to be done to fulfill like a market purpose, but something that's to be done from the soul, right? Something that's to be spiritually meaningful. You put intent into every brushstroke. You really do, right? And just like I put intent into every word that I write, I choose the words that I write for every sentence with meaning behind them for what I want to communicate for that moment, right? It goes all the way from the finest detail up to the big picture of what I'm doing. It's not just these characters are going on this journey and here's what I want them to do. AI, go write the story, and like, aren't I great that I wrote an outline? No. The details matter to me. They matter to me a lot. Now, let's also make a parallel here with something like Grammarly. I've demonstrated on the channel how to use Grammarly or like Pro Writing Aid. I think Grammarly is actually better than Pro Writing Aid, even for fiction. I'll just throw that out there and I can do a full video on that later if you want. But looking at Grammarly is a robot that serves you. The problem is, in the hands of a novice, Grammarly is like a teacher telling you what to do, and that is dangerous. If you already have mastery over the language and you have command over it and you have intent with what you're writing, then Grammarly is a very useful tool because it can point out mistakes that you made. You need a comma here. It can point you to sentences that maybe aren't as clear as you intended them to be. And Grammarly will say, you should rewrite the sentence like that. And I'll ignore that suggestion, but I'll rewrite the sentence in a different way that I think makes it more clear, makes my intent for that moment more clear, makes the sentence sound the way that I want it to sound. Sometimes I reverse word order and Grammarly will be like, this is wrong. I'm like, it's actually not wrong because other people have done it, right? If you read things before 1980, you'll find all kinds of rules that you thought existed being broken. And this is without Cormac McCarthy refusing to put any commas in his work, and yet people loving his books. So, yeah. In the hands of a master, that is a wonderful tool. It'll help you find mistakes. It'll help you think about your sentences in a good way that can help you to refine your writing and make make the revision process quicker and more accurate, right? Especially if you can lose focus while reading your own work. makes you focus because it has that thing that this needs to be fixed. The problem is in the hands of a novice, they think, oh, I have to change it to that. And so what comes out is Grammarly speak, robot speak, this sort of gray goo of speech that is technically correct for the style sheets that they're using. It's not even like really like Strunk and White kind of stuff. It's just, writing corporate emails, right? So if you follow all the suggestions of Grammarly, your book will be the most uninteresting thing to read. It will have no style to it. If you were to plug in something like Mervyn Peake into Grammarly, you would find Grammarly would be having, and if it were a robot, it's just a spell checker. If it were, if it were a person, it'd be having aneurysms over what Mervyn Peake does stylistically. But what makes something like the Gormenghast books so interesting is the way they are written. It's his choice of words. It's the way he constructs the sentences. It's the choice of how he wants to introduce the characters in what order. And AI would not write that book because it has like 5 chapters of just characters just existing, right? You can't create that kind of thing without a good amount of artistic intent, unless it's trying to imitate what's already been done, in which case it's just imitating again, right? And so the tendency would be, let's say you were trying to use like an AI editor, it would be like, you need to get rid of these 5 chapters, even though those early chapters of like Titus Groan are what makes the book powerful, right? Where you're just going through and seeing these bizarre characters and seeing what they do before you really get any kind of conflict. It breaks all the rules that we would think of, even the rules I would tell you about fiction. And I do have a chapter in my book, Break the Rules. It's the final chapter. You have to break the rules. And so breaking the rules with the correct intent is how you're going to create novelty, interest, and surprise in the reader. The intent is what matters. So those spell checkers are great tools. And I think AI art could be a great tool in the hands of a master. The problem is putting it in the hands of the novice that is unable to understand the outputs or properly evaluate them. He can't add the right value. He can't look at them and know what's wrong or what's right about them or what to refine because he just doesn't have the skill. So it would be one of those things where I'm sorry, people who are excited about AI art because it would allow you to skip art school, you really still have to take some art classes to figure out what you're doing. Even on a really basic level. And I'm not some kind of great visual artist, but I have taken art. I've taken enough art that I'm able to see these things that I'm realizing that other people just don't see because they just haven't developed enough. They haven't studied enough art. They haven't looked at enough art and known how it was made. That's all. So being able to do that will give you an edge, even if you want to use AI. But you have to become a master. You can't skip the process of mastering your craft because you won't actually be able to know if the output is bad. It's probably the same thing with programming. Like you could get your AI program or your large language model to generate code that's functional, but you really need to have some basic understanding of code because you're probably going to have to debug that at some point, and you want to know if it's going to work other than like plugging in and praying to the robot gods that it's going to work. You want to be able to evaluate the output. So in the hands of a programmer, that generated code might be really useful, but in the hands of a non-programmer, the jury's out, especially if you're trying to do any kind of complex project. If you're just trying to add like some cascading style sheets or something to your website, it might work really good for that. And you may have to, but I'm saying that knowing how CSS works. So I don't know. Leave me your thoughts about that though. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to pre-order King Leper. It is out on the 24th. I hope you guys will have a great day. And leave me your thoughts down below. Have a great one.